one thing that I want to touch upon first is the fact that AEW is really putting in some work with their women's division. It was a few months ago, well, not that many few months ago, it was actually like about 6 to 7 months ago when they decided to put the hottest wrestler on their show at that time, super over with the crowd, a great wrestler in her own right, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. They decided to put the strap on her, and apparently that took off. She kept getting huge reactions, she kept getting great wins, but at some point late last year, they kind of cooled her off a bit. They weren't giving her that main event slot. They weren't giving Britt Baker those big programs that she would need to maintain herself at the top of the AEW landscape. And even though she was mentioned by CM Punk as one of the pillars in one of those zingers that he delivered to MJF, which isn't wrong, she is one of AEW's pillars, the fact of the matter remains that Britt Baker right now is far from where she used to be when she first captured the AEW Women's World Championship. Now, this might change in the coming weeks, in the coming months. I hope it does, because first and foremost, AEW just came up with a very smart way of keeping the badass that they're trying to build in Jade Cargill, the brand new TBS champion, away from Britt Baker. Because they know, AEW knows that they do not want to have Britt Baker lose the title to Jade Cargill anytime soon, but they also can't have Jade Cargill keep getting wins and wins to maintain that undefeated streak and being that bitch without being able to challenge for the Women's World Championship. Now, eventually that match will happen. Eventually Jade Cargill will get a shot at the main title in the women's division in AEW. But for now, she's going to build her reputation. She's going to make her winning streak even longer and that much better. And that's going to keep them away from each other for the time being. And I think AEW did that for a reason. Because right now, All Elite Wrestling is building up to Britt Baker defending, and not only this, I believe that Britt Baker will at one point in the very near future, 2, 3, 4 months from now, maybe even sooner, at one point in the future, Britt Baker's going to drop her Women's World Championship to her most famed rival, to her most hated rival, in Thunder Rosa. And Thunder Rosa signed on to AEW last year. And we all remember that bloody match that they both had on the St. Patrick's Day edition of Dynamite that caught the wrestling world on fire, that made headlines. As a matter of fact, I believe that match, that moment, the mere shot of Dr. Britt Baker bloodied with a crimson mask on her is one of the main points as to why Britt Baker is as over as she is today. And All Elite Wrestling is smart, very smart to try to build to that point. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't put it past them if they wanted to have Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa for the Women's World Championship pretty much at the exact 1 year mark of that very match, which would put it 2 months from now in March. And I would go for it, absolutely. Thunder Rosa, also somebody who is very, very over with the crowd. And right now, Thunder Rosa was also someone that AEW needed to protect. And they had Mercedes Martinez screw her out of her chase for the TBS Championship. So right now, Thunder Rosa is going to be busy dealing with Mercedes Martinez. And once she's done with that, she's going to go after Britt Baker. But those are just my thoughts on the current state of the AEW Women's Division. At first, I thought, I want to give you my thoughts on the TBS title as well. It's fantastic that they found a way to keep Jade Cargill busy with that championship, but when they first announced the TBS title, I wasn't very happy with it. I wasn't. If the women's division had their own show, maybe that would warrant a mid-card title for them. But for right now, I just don't see the relevance or the trying to find the best word for it, the selling point, to put it in that way, of having two women's champions on AEW. Other than the fact that to keep someone else busy and to have all this talent that AEW is just loading the roster up with, that they have very little to do for them at the moment, I really see no other point that in the future have this big TBS and Women's World Title unification match. But other than that, the TBS Championship is going to serve its purpose right now. But those are my thoughts on the women's division. I think that's the road they're going on. I think Jade Cargill will have little to no opposition for the TBS Championship for the next 6 months, probably. Doesn't mean she's not going to have great matches with great opponents, but I don't think they're going to have Jade Cargill lose that title anytime soon. But leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the TBS Championship, on the current state of the Women's World Title, on my prediction of having Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa for the Women's World Title in the very near future. Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comment section below.